Well, thank you, everybody, and that was a very exciting intro. I think Ross and I represent the international contingent of the Nordic IoT conference here. Today, we wanted to share about the case study around mastering digitization through co-creation. Let me first start by talking a little bit about what's the context, right? So Symbio, for those of you who don't know us, and please do visit our sitting area in the back there, we're a product engineering and R&D services company, right? We've traditionally been helping technology companies to co-create a lot of their new products and services, right? Whether it be companies like Microsoft or Google or PayPal, we help them to build those products and services. In the last few years, we've been expanding those services to really start working with traditional companies that are now looking to digitize. They're looking to transform into the new realm of digital services. And today, I'm really excited to share the stage with our partner here, ABB, about some of the work that we've been doing. But first, maybe a little bit of context, right? We're living in very interesting times. In fact, some people would say very abnormal times. Right? Why do I say that? The world's largest taxi company has no taxis, right? It's Uber, right? The world's largest media company, Facebook, doesn't produce any of its own content, right? The world's largest hotel operator has no rooms, right? So you're seeing across every industry that digital and software and technology is transforming the entire value chain for how industries are organized. And some people might say, well, maybe that's just some hype, right? Is it hype or is it for real, right? And you can sort of see in the last 2 years alone, right, the number of new companies that have emerged that have gotten over $1 billion valuations has accelerated, right? There's been more companies in the last 2 years than all of the last 10 years combined. And what's unique about these companies is that they're real companies that are making real revenues, in often cases, real profits, right? So something very interesting is happening across the world. And one of the things I want to share with you is if you look across all these industries, what's really happening, right? Is that traditional companies, when you start thinking about the future roadmap, companies typically think linearly, right? There's this myth of predictability. There's this myth that, I can predict what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. In reality is that technology cannot be predicted in 3 to 5 years because of something many of you probably heard of called Moore's Law, right? Which is computing processing power doubles every 18 months. And that's actually applying now in the IoT space. It's applying across data, around big data, and it's accelerating, right? And that's what leads to a lot of the complexity and the confusion when it comes to actually predicting the future, right? So when you start looking at traditional technology adoption curves, again, most times people are thinking in terms of very linear uses, right? You have low quality use, medium quality use, high quality use, and the most demanding uses. And what happens is because technology accelerates so quickly, it's able to transcend those curves, right? As an example, let's look at electric cars and what happened, right? Electric cars have been here for a very long time. In fact, the first cars that were manufactured over 100 years ago were actually electric cars. But you sort of saw, in the 60s and 70s and 80s, even to the 90s, electric cars were kind of toys, right? They weren't really quite up to sort of even the low quality use, right? An electric car got 5 miles of usage in a charge. And then something happened, right? In the early 2000s, you started to see the emergence of cars that suddenly were able to handle day-to-day use, right? 30, 40 miles sort of to a charge. And then something happened in the last few years, which is now you've seen the emergence of electric cars that are the most demanding use, right? The fastest production cars are Teslas that we all have heard quite a bit about in this conference, right? And they've emerged in the last few years, and you can see the technology around electric cars is very quickly accelerated, right? So it's taken this hockey puck type of development. And you start to see this is actually happening exactly with the IoT space as well, right? You can see the inception that a lot of people sort of say is maybe in 2009 was kind of the inception of sort of the IoT in terms of these sensorified devices that's really started connecting with each other and started generating data on their own. And you can see that same hockey puck sort of development that's actually happened in the IoT space. What is the implication of this? The implication is that the future is going to be very confusing. And again, it's going to be very difficult to predict what is the outcome of this. But there are a couple of things that we can probably take away that we know for certain is already happening, right? I think the first is this concept of we can now process all of the data that's actually being generated by these devices, right? So I kind of say n equals all, right? The days of sampling, right? Sampling was sort of a concept from, when we were learning statistics in school. We don't sample anymore. You don't need to sample anymore because you can now process all the data that's actually happening, right? So we're moving from a world of information scarcity to being able to actually incorporate and use all of the data that's actually emerging. Another implication is that everything is unstructured, right? So the days of where we actually used to do database design and you'd actually have things where you'd have set fields and defined fields, today it's actually changing very quickly because the types of data, the variety of data that's being generated, the types of content that's actually out there, information that's out there is so diverse, right? So it's all becoming, it's all unstructured, right? And because of that, what you find is that there are very interesting correlations that only computers can figure out. Right? So one of the really interesting cases was, Google was actually better able to predict the spread of the H1N1 bird flu virus by using its search engine, not by actually what was happening on the ground with bird flu virus. They were actually able to do that by finding correlation across 42 or 43 different search terms that were actually happening on Google. Right, so you're starting to see that, instead of the human mind sort of trying to figure out, well, what's causing something from happening or trying to specify that, you're finding that interesting insights are starting to emerge by just crunching all the stuff that's happening. So again, it's getting so complex, it's getting so confusing, it's actually beyond the limits of human comprehension. And so what does that mean, right? And what's the context for co-creation, right? Is that we're moving from a world where people thought the myth of certainty, the myth of predictability, that you could actually specify what you wanted, right? The fact that you could specify what you wanted is actually a myth, right? That's why I think over and over we've seen quite a lot of presentations here about projects and why some projects fail and why projects succeed. I think one of the big reasons why is that the ability to actually specify what you really want is actually very, very difficult in this world. Because oftentimes, by the time you've actually figured out what you actually want and actually gotten to a level of detail that you can actually do something about it, markets changed, the products changed, the space has changed, right? So we're moving from a world of specification to one of experimentation, right? We're moving from one where people go into a project or go into a situation with known outcomes, thinking that they know what they want to get, to actually one where you're really about accelerated learning together with your partners. From a world where the next product is about stuffing more features, right? More stuff into next release, to one where you're actually slimming it down and actually focusing on what the experience ends up being. So we're moving from a world of a customer-vendor type of a relationship to really one of a co-creative, a collaborative, deeply collaborative relationship. Right? And for Symbio, we talk a lot about innovation co-creation. Right? And innovation co-creation really is about three things, right? Let's start at the cultural level, right? To actually co-create that future together with our partners, it's about first culture, right? Having a discovery mindset, right? So going into something, looking for those aha moments, looking for those, oh, that's interesting kind of moments, versus going into things expecting that things are going to fit into a worldview, right? So first is really discovery. Second is really that collaboration trumps any kind of roles. Right? So whenever we're doing kind of cultures, it's not about what function that you're in the company or what role, like where you are in the management hierarchy. It's really about collaborative, right? Collaboration, getting people to get together and do things in a skip level, skip function type of way. From a strategy standpoint, it's about rapid experimentation, cross-functional team fusion. And from a technique standpoint, focusing on the customer journey, right? Focusing on doing things like design sprints, agile learning loops. And I just want to kind of share maybe two concepts, right? On the strategy side, I talked about rapid experimentation. Right? In traditional cycles, traditional product cycles, even if you use an agile approach, it's months, right? You sort of have an idea, you might validate the idea, you might test it a little bit, you might do some, you might build it, you launch it, and then you sort of learn from that and you sort of feed that back. In today's world, though, actually, there are ways that you can actually go from idea to actual learning very quickly. Right? And one of those techniques that we use are these design sprints. This is something that we've worked on for a few years now with both Stanford D School, IDEO, as well as now the Google team, right? Google Design Sprints, which is a very, very fast, accelerated way that you can actually get from idea to validation, right? And you can apply this not just for products, or designs, you can actually apply as their strategy. In fact, we're working with a very large global multinational bank to actually develop one of their market entry strategies using the same type of approach, right? So it's a 5-day approach where you can literally, day 1, unpack, learn, empathize with what the users are looking to do. Day 2, start sketching and brainstorming ideas. By day 3, you're making some decisions, narrowing down those possibilities into 1 or 2 very interesting, high potential concepts. By day 4, you're really prototyping, like putting stuff actually, working prototypes, clickable prototypes oftentimes if you're doing digital assets. And by day 5, you're testing and validating that, right? So in 1 week, you can get so much done, right? And you can get a whole team to really be able to sync and collaborate and co-create together in 1 week of time. So I wanted to kind of share that as sort of a technique. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ross, who can share more about some of the stuff that we've been doing at ABB and some of the really cool stuff that's come out of our collaboration.
Okay. Thanks, Victor.
ABB variable speed drives are going mobile. New smartphone apps provide you with better connectivity and experience and access to cloud-based services and information throughout your variable speed drive's lifecycle. The DriveTune app puts all your drive data in your pocket, so you can manage and control your drive wirelessly on the go. The DriveBase app registers your drive so you can keep track of your installed drive space, service and maintenance needs. You had the control, efficiency and support from ABB in your business before. Now all that and your productivity just got a little better.
Hi, everybody. My name is Zhongliang, also known as Ross. It's really a good pleasure for me to be here and share a few thoughts with you. Actually, I thought it's a really like a tough time for me to discuss because all the grand ideas has been already discussed. You probably know a lot already about this IoT stuff and perhaps a lot better than I do. But I thought to contribute to the discussion, what I could do is to provide you a few ideas and lessons learned in the journey of me and my teams while we are creating actual IoT product on launch it and make a positive impact inside ABB drives and among our customers. I thought that was relevant today and also to talk a little bit about co-creation and partnership with our innovation partners. By the way, IoT was branded by ABB by IoTSP, which means Internet of Things, Services, and People. Oftentimes, we forgot that the people is actually the main thing we wanted to involve in the discussion. So I thought the ABB brand of the IoT was actually a good one. And I'd like to discuss a few viewpoints in IoT product creation. And the first thing I wanted to go is about effort consideration. In the hardware-oriented companies or hardware-focused companies, it's oftentimes thought that creating a product takes 80% of the time and resources, where maintaining it, keep on managing it takes 20%, where in the software industry it's very well known that it's 20-25%, well, the product creation and 80% of the time and the resources you need to denote to the maintaining, bug fixing, and adding new features. And for the IoT product, well, this is still learning because we are not reaching any end of this product creation. But in my mind, it might be 40-60, or somebody said 50-60 division. So please do reserve enough time after creating the IoT or launch it and maintaining it along the way. Next point is about process. So measure twice and cut once is really the motto of many hardware companies. And for the software companies, the mentality has always been continuous integration, agile, fail fast, and so forth. But when you create an IoT product, you really do have the T part, meaning that things you cannot get back very easily, you cannot update very easily. But on the other hand, you do want to add more things later, and you want it to improve along the way, and you really do have a deadline, right? So my thought, in my experience, is that you really wanted to produce the highest quality hardware as a platform and deliver that, and add on the minimum variable product features in your software, and really ask every day to your product managers and salespeople and your customers that, is this really the minimum variable? Is it enough to tell our story? And if that's a yes at any moment, you have to ship it, fast, or at least on time, right? And then another side of the coin is really to change the mindset. For the hardware guys, it's or hardware, including mechanics and electronics, it's very oftentimes said that if it works, don't touch it. It's really because I think the asset that we deliver to the customer is serving really grand purpose. You don't want the process to stop in the factory. So once it works, you shouldn't really mess around with it. Where the digital generation, they really expect that the features are unlocked every day, right? And what we do in this case is that we really should turn the mindset from hardware deliver, like box building, to deliver a hardware and even a software as a platform where the new features and new services can be added later. I mean, when you buy a Tesla car, of course, you expect that the auto lane change comes later, right? Not in the first day, but later. And this is really relevant and resonant very well to the thought leader in this field. So, what's the takeaway from this slide is that if you have really a hardware-focused company and business, combine their strengths with the software guys, software-focused partners, and combine the strengths, and don't, have priorities, because both of them have their unique viewpoint, and both of them is very relevant of your IoT product. Next topic is about blue ocean. I mean, I'm not talking about a strategy level. That's not, in a way, the executional level I'm trying to focus on. But it's relevant to discuss because when the CEO left the boardroom, you still need to take on the vision and execute them, right? And during the execution, there are various problems. And I want to share you my view on the executional level, what kind of things your product owners have to look out. First thing is that we really should think about customer experience. Imagine that your chief test engineer or chief quality engineer told you that, hey, Ross, your product failed our test because our phone only lasts for 1 day now, and our test metric was 7 days, right? So you cannot launch this product. If that is the thing you have to stick with, you will never really invent iPhone anymore, right? So from that point of view, you really need to rethink what is the customer value you provide now and update your whole quality metrics and KPIs to be aligned with. Because disruption is about internal and external both. And very importantly, engage internal stakeholder and engage them early and first. Have perhaps some high-level sponsorship. I mean, that's the secret of all the successful projects. You know this already. And also, don't trust anybody who tell you that this piece of process, this piece of software, this piece of innovation, this piece of business model has been validated before, right? It has been validated in other fields. The e-commerce has been done this for 10 years, so it will work for you. Never trust that, because that's not true. Your business, you're on top of your business, like us, ABB is leading the competition in the drives for decades. It has its own reasons of existing, and it's always unique. And ramping up IoT product cannot just copy-paste existing stuff from other field. You really have to rethink what has ever been successful before and make it your own story. So that's the takeaway from how to handle the blue ocean strategy. And the next slides, I wanted to discuss a little bit of co-creation and partnership. And I thought that was an interesting discussion as well, because as we heard from GE, and they are really sort of pioneering in this field to pivot from a hardware and sort of a ironclad kind of company to the software business, and sort of reshift the resourcing. It's quite important to notice that in this transition, we also have the partners, consultants, and external brains to help us out. And from that point of view, it might be the first ones that you absorb and learn from. And in this case, I think it's a very key discussion to look after. So therefore, I wanted to spend the last few minutes on this topic. And a few key points. The first one is communicate once. I mean, this is really strange. Why do you communicate just once? Even in the traditional project ordering, you communicate at least twice, right? You at the beginning tell the specification, a month later you ask the result. So at least twice. We changed that to communicate only once and communicate from the very beginning to the very end. We have the daily meetings. The Scrum meetings is happening every day. We have the grooming sessions. We discuss with different part of the business, validate the ideas, the features, pilot customers, and so forth, to really get into the detail and continuously improve. Next thing, no big wins. I mean, no big wins is strange because big companies like us really love big wins. But unfortunately, this doesn't work. So we need to have small daily wins and really build up your prototype delivering process so that it can continuously deliver. I mean, my phone is connecting to a autonomic build server, so I actually get pushed for an app update 2-3 times a day. So really, you should have these small wins daily to know where you are. And be a boss. I mean, this is really strange because traditionally we thought that the partners are the best if they're humble and do exactly what we say. That's not true anymore. We need to elaborate with them and get the trust so they can challenge us. They can provide the sort of the fresh ideas and take leadership and provide accountability in the discussion. The next one, a lot of small problems. This must be a good thing, but why? It's oftentimes that from the internal guys you have, they wanted to say that I offload the design to external, so I don't want the problems. But the problem is that the problems could be exactly the innovation point, and you really don't want to miss that. What you need to do is that work with your team every day and work with your team continuously and work with the internal and external stakeholders all the time, so to make sure no big problems arise and keep on working the correct things and solving them day to day. Okay, my time is almost up, and I wanted to show you one more slide. It's coming together with a question. It's about, so as a product owner, I use my phone all the time as sort of a automatic build deliver system verification and use the cool apps that we create. What else I do with it? We, of course, do it as a selfie maker. So this is a picture, so these are just a joke. So this is a selfie I took with another development manager from ABB and two middle, one gentleman, Gimo, and a beautiful lady, a blonde girl from Symbio as well. And we launched this product successfully last year in Hannover, Mass. And this year we are going to be there next week again to really launch new cool features and include the compatibility to the all compatible drives as well. And we really hope to create a wow effect among our customers and create an oh no effect among our competitors. Thank you very much for the organizer, and thank you all for listening to me. Thank you. Thank you.
Great job.